At the beginning of 2025, I started posting these videos every 2 weeks showing the meals that I'm making with the groceries that I'm buying. So this video is actually meals number 11 out of the series. And if you want to go back all the way to January and see all of the different meals, we have those linked in the description. This is a great way for me to share the things that I'm buying at the grocery store and how I'm using them and using things up in my freezer and my pantry. But it's also the place that I get to vlog and tell you about what things are happening in our lives that I don't normally share in other videos. So you get to see sneak peeks of things that are happening here at this house and the transitions that are happening through the seasons of not only the weather, but our life. If you're just meeting me, my name is 𝐂𝐻𝐶𝐓'𝐒, and this is the 𝐂𝐻𝐍𝐍𝐄𝐂𝐓 Legacy, where I teach you how to save money on groceries. Our grocery budget is $135 per person, and for the last year, it has only been 2 of us at home, so our grocery budget has been $270 total for the 2 of us. And all of the things that we have in our house in the freezer, in our pantries, and the fresh produce that we're buying has been purchased with that same grocery budget. This is actually a video that I really like making because this starts 3 weeks after I went to the grocery store. So you can really see how I'm using that produce that is still fresh and using it up. And I even spread out our grocery shopping trip a little bit longer. So it goes from the 3 to 5 week mark from going to the grocery store. So this video starts on May 19th and it goes through Memorial Day all the way till last night, which is the beginning of June. At the very end of the Meals 10 video, I had made a sheet pan of a bunch of vegetables that we had for dinner. And then I was planning to do something else with it, which was make this meal. So I ended up taking some frozen tomatoes that I had in the freezer from last year during harvest time. I made sure to wash those when I had pulled them out of the garden, and then I cored them and put them in a bag, and they will stay fresh all year down in the freezer. Our freezer is downstairs. Our house here is a split level, so our kitchen is upstairs and our freezer is downstairs. But I pulled those tomatoes out and I just let them simmer in a pan, and then I added the roasted vegetables in it. I made like a garden harvest marinara sauce. So you can literally use up any veggies that you have and be able to cook it down and make your own marinara sauce that is loaded with vegetables. And I had this with some spaghetti squash that we had left over here that I wanted to use up. And since we were like lowering the carbs with all of the different things that we had with the veggies, I was really excited to pull out some of the sourdough bread that I get from Costco. This is shelf-stable sourdough bread that actually stays fresh 6 to 9 months in the packaging that it's in. So it only has a few simple ingredients, but it's the packaging and the way that it's stored. It's shelf-stable. But I knew that we are moving soon and going into the summertime. I wanted to make sure that I used up the last loaf that I had in the pantry, and that way I didn't have to turn on the oven during the summertime to bake it. The next date on this video is a date that I want to remember forever. It was 5/20/2025, and it was the day that our offer on the new house was accepted. We have lived in this house for 22 years. It is the only house that our kids remember. We were talking about the fact that we were 28 years old when we moved into this house, or I might have been 27, I don't know. But we have grown into adults living here too. It has always been our plan to move to Eastern Washington. We have always wanted to get out of the wet side of Washington and move to where it is slower. It is warmer during the summertime, and sometimes is colder over there where you can see more snow also, instead of the 9 months of drizzly rain that we can have here in the Seattle area. So that has been something that has been our hope and dream forever. I always say that my heart beats 509, which is the area code that we are moving to. So in this house, we had started a major remodel in 2020, right before the pandemic. And then the pandemic happened, and then our grandma moved in with us. And so things kind of slowed down while she was here. Actually, things kind of went to a complete stop while grandma was here. And we made sure she had the best last chapter while she was here, and we enjoyed every single second of it. But the last 6 months has been non-stop wanting to move. And so we have been doing so many projects. This kitchen area has been the only room that has been completely remodeled. And in the last 6 months, we have went through the entire rest of the house and have remodeled every single room. If you're interested in how we're remodeling the rooms and staging the rooms, I can't wait to show you that in more videos. In this 2-week period, we have had the offer accepted on the house, and we have exactly 2 weeks to list our house. So I'm kind of a little tongue-tied right now and kind of struggling a little bit emotional, because as we started filming this, they put the for sale sign out on our yard. So literally I can stand here and see the for sale sign in our yard, and it's a little emotional today. Since it has been 3 weeks since I went to the grocery store, sometimes I'm purposely not eating things right away because I want to show them in pictures, and I want to show you that they're still fresh weeks later. So this corn on the cob was one of those things I was kind of holding on to until later in this grocery cycle. But when you go grocery shopping and get corn on the cob, make sure that you don't pull back those husks, because it will just start drying out the corn really quickly. So I just kind of fill the top of the corn to make sure that the kernels are whole. And if the husks look like they're not drying out, then it's perfectly good to just put that corn in the crisper drawer. Now make sure that if you do have it in a plastic bag, I normally use our organic produce bags, but when you do put it into the crisper drawer, don't have it in any kind of plastic. That will collect extra moisture in there and will cause it to mold. So it is better to put it in the crisper drawer, not in anything, than to keep it in that plastic bag. And that's kind of the same thing for a lot of the items that you're bringing home, like cauliflower. It's better to get it out of that plastic right away. So I made this Southwest corn skillet. I was just trying to play with the things that I had on hand and test the flavors out. So I wasn't following a recipe. I was just using what I had. But I had some chicken sausage that I had pulled out and a couple pieces of bacon that were in the refrigerator. So I was using those and some peppers, and I was just seasoning as I was going. We did have a friend here who got voluntold that he was going to move this very heavy white cabinet out of our house because his wife wanted it. And so while I was doing this recipe testing and writing things down, he kept commenting on how good it smelt. So I made sure that I had enough that it didn't just feed us, but we also fed him. This skillet actually tastes really good leftover cold also the next day. So it's a perfect recipe if you want to have it for dinner or use it later for a meal prep item, either hot or cold. And I think this is the recipe that's going to end up being on the newsletter. So if you would like the recipe for this, make sure that you're requesting it, and we will write it up and put it in the newsletter. The link for the newsletter to sign up, if you're not already signed up, is in the description. Whatever recipe ends up being the most requested in the comments is the one that we send out in the newsletter that is linked for this video. So make sure that you're commenting which recipes that you are wanting, and we will either send it out in the newsletter or possibly eventually make it into a blog post. Our house is only 1,300 square feet, and we are trying to put flooring in multiple rooms at the same time. So things are a little crazy in the other rooms of the house, and there is a lot going on. As we have been doing this, I have been trying to plan ahead since January when I started the Pantry Challenge to start putting things away and into storage that we didn't need until next fall or winter. So if you've been following along that whole transformation of our pantry that went from an entire bedroom being the pantry to now a guest bedroom in the house, you will see how I put away all of our canning supplies and things that we wouldn't need for months. During this, I made sure to keep all of the actual food in the house. And so long-term storage things I had put in a closet that are underneath our stairs, and then things that I wanted to use up and cycle through before we moved and to make sure that we're using, I have kept those more handy, and I'm checking in on those items often. So it helps me refresh the things that need to be used up and how I can use them now during a different season going into into summer than I might have originally thought about when I had purchased them. We have videos here on the channel if you want to see the progress of moving out of that pantry and into the closet and now getting ready to move. But I wanted to talk about those things that we're moving over to storage. So I have been really detailed about everything since we are moving 4 hours away and to a house that we are going to start another remodeling project on. I wanted to make sure when I'm putting things in storage, we could do it one trip at a time to head over to the mountains, because we will be coming back over on this side of the mountains to visit friends and family and to take care of some things. We don't have to move all of our belongings at one time. So I have been labeling everything really detailed and putting stickers on boxes so I know exactly what is in that box and it's color coordinated. And then I also have a spreadsheet for things that we're not going to be needing for the next 6 months. And that way I know when I'm looking for something, especially like during harvest time, I'm looking for my canning stuff, I will know exactly what box I need to go get out of storage. So one of the challenges that we have had since January is also not eating out. So we have completely eliminated the too lazy to cook takeout budget out of our budget the first 3 months of this year, which we ended up pushing out until almost mid-May. So we weren't getting any kind of takeout. We were planning all of our trips across the mountains, making sure that we were bringing things that we needed so we didn't have to stop and get gas station snacks, those kind of things. All of those videos and different tips I was using for the road trips, those are all in the previous videos. But we did on this day end up going and getting some takeout, which was sub sandwiches. It was 4 o'clock and we realized that we had never stopped and ate lunch, and we had some workers here that were helping us move those heavy items out of the house. And I was so surprised when I went to pay. Mike and I, when we normally go, we will get one giant sub and we will share that. And I ended up getting 2 subs and a couple bags of chips, and it was $58. $58 to feed 3 of us. It kind of shocked me that day, and I'm making sure when I'm planning my next grocery shopping trip, I'm going to have those extra sandwich fixings and hoagies and stuff here. So when there is a crew here helping, I can feed them, because I don't want to feel bad and eat in front of them when they're here helping us. But I'm not going to complain about the price of the sandwiches. I'm just glad that we don't go and get takeout very often. But those sandwiches ended up being a huge blessing because we didn't eat them all. And we were planning on stopping a little bit later in the evening and having something for dinner, but our power went out. Somebody had hit a power pole out on the road, and so the power was out. We were told the power was going to be back on around 9 o'clock. Honestly, we have been working 18-hour days, and it was a good thing that Mike had to take a break, and so he got to hang out with some of his neighbor friends out in the backyard. They had a bonfire, but the power didn't end up coming back on until 2:30 in the morning. So since we had known that it was supposed to come back on around 9, we didn't bother getting the generator out, and those leftover sandwiches ended up being our dinner also. Some of this video is just going to be last memories in this house, and it might be for the next video too, but our kiddo was home who climbs that huge cedar tree that is outside. This thing has grown over 30 feet since we have moved in, and they wanted to climb it one last time. And when they got safely back on the ground again, reminded me that they have successfully done this their entire life and have never needed an ER trip. So during this, we were super busy. I hadn't really pulled any meat out of the freezer or had done anything. One, because it was our vegetarian that was home. So we ended up just having cheese quesadillas with fermented salsa for dinner, and we called that good. So we are back to a Monday. This actually should be our grocery shopping trip day because it has been 4 weeks since we went to a grocery store, and normally the content team goes with me. So we plan it on a content day, which is normally a Monday. but it was Memorial Day. And so we pushed off grocery shopping for another week. So everything that you see for produce wise now, well, all the groceries have been over a month old in my house from this point forward in the video till the end of this video. If you want to learn how to keep 75 produce items fresh for weeks, this is our book, The Zero Waste Produce Guide, that goes hand in hand with the meal planner. So this is how I keep track of how much we are spending, what we're making for meals, and the inventory in our house. And these two items are bundled together on our shop. The link is in the description, and there is also a secret discount code for watching this video that you can get these not only on sale, but an actual extra discount. I made this shrimp salad. I had cooked up the shrimp really quickly, and then we had leftover spinach that is a month old and some salad toppings. And then I just made a dressing using coconut aminos, which you can use soy sauce. I am allergic to soy, so that is my go-to, with some ground mustard. Again, you can use whatever mustard you have on hand. That's what I had. Normally I would use Dijon. And then I also used an orange instead of a lemon because, again, we are a month since we went to the grocery store. But I used those three things in equal parts and made the dressing for the salad. And it was really lovely that we could have something different a month into going to the grocery store. So we actually had some croissants that were left over in the freezer. I get those big packages at Costco. These have been hanging out since the holidays, and I put them in Ziploc bags, so they normally last around 6 months in the freezer, and I wanted to make sure that I used those up and we weren't going to have to move with them. I just used those croissants and made a fried egg sandwich with melted cheese and bacon. We had just did inventory of what we had in the freezer that I'm trying to use up, and I noticed that I had some chicken orzo left in there in the super cubes, so that was a perfect thing to just reheat and have for dinner. This one was actually with the chicken sausage. That's what happened to be in the freezer. And I also make this with extra leftover cooked chicken. Either way, however you want to make it, we have the recipe on the blog for it, and it is a super simple one-pot meal, and then it freezes well also. I made an egg bake. I do this really often. Normally I'll have a couple different kinds in the freezer and I'm rotating them out, but since I'm trying to limit the things in the freezer, I just made enough to last in the refrigerator for a few days. But I don't like cooking in the morning, and whenever I can make something that I can eat for a few days, that is always a win for me. I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw this carrot salad, which they claim is supposed to help with stress levels and hormones. And hey, like, we could do all the stress help that we can. I'm not claiming anything besides that it tasted really good. So I had some extra carrots and I ended up peeling those. And again, I was making this because it was supposed to help with stress levels. And as I went to go shake the coconut aminos, I realized that I had already taken off the lid and it went everywhere. So again, we are going through probably one of the most stressful times of our lives. It's joyous and we're excited and all of the things, but this is the first time we've ever moved and sold a house. I have only ever moved 4 times in my life. I grew up in a 5th generational farmhouse, and then I got married and we went to college and we lived at WSU and we're at college. Then we lived in our first house, and then being 28, we moved here, and now we are pushing 50. So some of those other things about not moving around often is Mike has been collecting wood for projects for over 20 years. And he had an entire shed in the backyard that was full of, this is a good piece of wood that I could use for something. So that has been really hard for him to let some of that wood go so we don't have to move it, and he can move on to different hobbies when we moved to Eastern Washington. But we spent so much time outside cleaning up the back part of our land here. It's a 1/4 acre. We live in town. It's a big lot for where our house is situated, and the chicken coop is gone, so we've been trying to just kind of spread out that area, and it's just been hours and hours of yard work. And this is where batch cooking taco meat comes in super handy, because I just had to warm up that taco meat. We had tortillas that were in the freezer that I had pulled out earlier in the day There was still fresh lettuce that was over a month old, an avocado that was still fresh. We had that with fermented salsa and the Greek yogurt. Again, I haven't been to the grocery store in over a month, and we had soft tacos for dinner. And we had fermented salsa, which has all the benefits of eating sauerkraut, but it's salsa. So if you're interested in making that, especially during the summertime, it lasts for months in your refrigerator. This one that we're still finishing up, I made like last August, and now we're getting to the end of May. We are in absolute crunch time to get these rooms finished before staging pictures. So I knew that I just needed to do something quick and easy that we could actually repurpose and use for a few days. So I pulled out a bunch of chicken out of the freezer and put it in the Instapot. And I just did this with chicken stock and then had some salt, pepper, and garlic on it. I wanted to make it really simple so we could repurpose it for the next coming days. And when that was done in the Instapot, I just shredded that up and put it in the refrigerator. We did have it for dinner that night. I cooked it earlier in the day, but we had it for dinner that night. So on the sheet pan that I put in the oven, I diced up some sweet potatoes. I also had some onions left over in the refrigerator that happened to be red onions, and then added some rinsed garbanzo beans to that. On all of that, I drizzled avocado oil, salt, pepper, garlic, and then I have this rosemary seasoning blend that I added to it. And I let those cook in the oven until they were fork tender for the potatoes. And then during the last few minutes of that, I added about 2 handfuls of chopped spinach to it. Again, I had that in the refrigerator and I wanted to use that up. So I added the spinach to it. And then when it was all done cooking, I made a little dressing that I added. It was some ground mustard, lemon juice, and honey, which were all equal parts. And I drizzled that over the vegetables, added it with the chicken, and we had a delicious meal that we had not only for dinner, but we had it for lunch the next day also. Again, this is another like 18-hour day. I want to make meals as quickly as possible. And we had quesadillas again. I don't even care that we had them earlier in the week, but we had quesadillas this time. We also had shredded chicken on it, so they were pretty hearty, and that's what we had with the fermented salsa. We have really not had a ton of an appetite. Our stress levels are really high. We are just really busy trying to make sure that we get our entire checklist done. Like, no joke, I have a 3-page spreadsheet of a checklist that needs to be done before we take staging pictures. You might notice, besides for that taco meat that I pulled out that was already batch cooked, I haven't mentioned much about eating any beef in this video, and it's because we have the beef in a chest freezer and it is piled high with remodeling stuff. So there is stuff in front of it, there's some stuff on top of it. We're making sure that it's still on, but that is one of the biggest drawbacks of having a chest freezer. Besides, I'm short and it's really hard to reach inside of it, but people put things on top of it like a tabletop. So with the fact that we are remodeling so many rooms at the same time, it's just getting kind of buried in the garage right now, and I can't get to it easily. So I'm trying to use up some of the other things that we need to use in the freezer, and we're going to be filming that meat video, hopefully at the next content day after Mike cleans up the garage a little bit. One of the things that I had found when I was taking inventory of those pantry items was a little jar of Trader Joe's pesto sauce, which I like to have on hand. It's really handy because it's just a small jar and it is shelf stable when it's unopened. So it does need to go into the refrigerator after it's open. But I had some sourdough bread in our upright freezer that I could get to, and I pulled that out, and we had chicken pesto sandwiches with some melted mozzarella cheese, using that chicken that I had cooked up a couple days before. And then I also had grilled some onions. If I didn't want to grill the onions, I probably could have had dinner on the table within 5 minutes, but grilling the onions did take a few extra minutes. And then I just put the lid back on when I was making it to melt the cheese. So we had these wonderful sandwiches that were completely different than anything that we've had in a while. And we had that with the carrot salad that was left over and some of the crunchy pickles that we had in the refrigerator. And since we are getting into garden season, if you are interested in making your own pickles, these do last in the refrigerator for months, and they are crunchy the entire entire time, and you don't have to learn how to can to do them. We have a video on the crunchy pickles if you're interested, and there's also a blog post. Just make sure to ask for the link in the comments and we are happy to provide it for you. I'm starting to learn that there are a lot of people in and out, friends that are helping us, that I need to have things that I can spread out and feed people often. So this night we ended up having some personal size pizzas. I had gyros in the freezer, so I was able to pull out exactly the amount that I needed. And I had that mozzarella cheese that I had pulled out. It was in the refrigerator. I have learned one thing, that if the mozzarella is in the refrigerator and not the freezer, I just chop it up with a knife instead of trying to shred it. It's way easier to shred if it's partially frozen than if it's defrosted all the way in the refrigerator. So that's kind of a tip if you are making homemade pizza and pulling out mozzarella from the freezer earlier in the day, shred it while it's still a little bit frozen. So for the guys, I was making Hawaiian pizzas. Mike likes black olives on his, and so I made those. And then I decided I want a pesto chicken with artichokes on mine, and so that's what I made for my pizza. So it was really neat to be able to just pull things out of my refrigerator that I had that were handy and feed not only Mike and I, but the crew that was here. Oftentimes during that bewitching hour is what we normally call it, but after the kids used to get home from school and dinner time, we would set out veggies. I was actually just chomping on some purple cabbage that we had in the refrigerator. I had debated about adding it to the meal that I was making, but Mike actually doesn't like cabbage that much. And so I was nibbling on that while I was making dinner and was debating about adding it to the fried rice that I was making, but ended up not adding it. But what I did add, and he didn't know, is I actually made that fried rice with cauliflower rice. So I made sure to cook that cauliflower down in the pan first and add onions to it. So I added a little bit of water and cooked that until the water all dissipated from it. And then I made the fried rice like I would normally do. So I still had some carrots that were left over and then some frozen peas, which I used the last of those, and made the fried rice. We had some ham that was actually left over from Easter that I had in the freezer all chopped up. So I was able to add that really easily. And then I added some extra eggs into this just to bump up the protein a little bit. So we had the fried rice for dinner. That kind of wraps up pushing out our grocery shopping to 5 weeks. So that was the last meal that we made in this grocery cycle. And then we get to go grocery shopping again, and we will start that in the next video. So this video pushes us out to today, which is the beginning of June. And we're going to be doing the June grocery haul. The June grocery haul actually will get posted within normally 24 hours of us going grocery shopping. But these meals videos kind of get pushed out about 2 weeks. So you kind of see them a little bit later because they take so long to edit, because I stop and start 1,000 times during these videos and try to remember exactly what we were doing on that day with my notes and the pictures that I take every single day. But anyways, the sign went out on our yard today, the lockbox is on our door, and our house is getting listed tomorrow. So just really pray for us in these next 2 weeks as we are wrapping up all of the little tedious things on that to-do list, and that we can sell our house quickly and move closer to our family.